I say, don't think like a real estate agent, think like a marketer. If you get it sold by a certain date, I'll pay you above and beyond, even more than what I was proposing. You want to be the firstborn, the second wife, and a third real estate agent.
Luxury real estate is not a price point, it is a service.
All right, we are good to go. So this week we brought in a guest. If you're live, you can ask a lot of questions. If you're watching the recording, I mean, you can put them in the comments. I'll see if we answer them. But this would be your encouragement. Show up live. If you're here live, ask as many questions as you want. If you'd like to ask on camera, as long as you're friendly to being on camera, which I generally just mean clothed, you're welcome to jump on camera with us. And this episode should be good. So we're bringing in Michael LaFido, who now it's been 5 years-ish. Just over. We met in 2020 at like the last conference before everything shut down. The Rio Reality event in Niagara. We kind of kept in touch since. And Michael literally wrote the book on being a luxury real estate agent, and a lot of other things in there. So what we're going to be talking today a lot around that topic of luxury. And again, if you have questions, that's the biggest value of being here live, is put it in the chat or the Q&A, or ask if you want to come up as a panelist, and we will let you ask your question live on camera, and we'll be here to help you out. But you two have actually never met before, so this will be good. So Taylor, just so you know, Michael, he runs a team in Edmonton, Alberta. They do about 140, 150 deals a year, roughly. And a lot of that does come from online, a lot come from the client base, agent referrals, stuff like that. They're in a pretty good business. Anything you would like to say about yourself that I've left out so far? Because I know there's a lot there.
So Michael, really good to have you there. And also, like, looking from the outside, yeah, I do run a team, and we do pretty high production. But I have to tell you, like many agents, not super comfortable. I don't pursue a lot of luxury. And from the outside, some of it looks interesting and some of it looks like a huge hassle. I think the best quote I've ever heard related to luxury real estate is that luxury real estate is not a price point. It is a service. Like, it's a service level.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, there's a different expectation from that clientele for sure.
And how long you've been licensed now, Michael?
I've been licensed since 2000, so 24 years. And unfortunately, I waited about 11 or 12 years into it to start selling luxury, right? And so that's what if I had to go back 20 something years ago and talk to my younger self, I would say, don't wait, right? And there's so many misconceptions agents have, and one of which they have to be licensed X amount of years, or live in a certain community, or drive a certain car. Another misconception, or I guess fear of some agents, is, man, it's going to cost a lot more money to sell these homes, right? And so I'm sure we'll cover all that.
Yeah, because now not only did you learn how to do it yourself, but you actually have a luxury listing specialist designation. Is that right?
Yeah, so about 9 years ago, we created a course. We teach it both in person and on demand, and it's called Luxury Specialist, or Lux for short. And it's a 16 module class, and there's something for everybody. So if you're a non-luxury agent, a newer agent, you're going to walk out of there feeling empowered. But if you're already an established luxury agent, I call it the principle of slight edge. If I can learn one or two things that I can actually implement and articulate differently than my competitor, then it's worth its weight in gold.
Well, what do you think that most agents are really taking a step with the wrong foot on the way into luxury? Where do you think that most of them stumble?
Well, I've had a lot of different images made as a presenter over the years, and one of which is, I call it the evolution of a real estate agent. You've probably seen the picture of the evolution of man, right? Like it's like they're crawling and then hunched over walking, and then the human mankind at the end. Well, the evolution of a real estate agent is, they get their license, they work with renters and buyers, and then maybe a listing here, there, and then maybe an average price listing, and then they might get a high-end buyer or seller here and there, but very rarely do they focus on luxury. And I'm not saying one's right or wrong. I do believe in diversifying your portfolio of clients. So you should have some entry level and some luxury, but most are, which I'll go into right now. I believe that there's 5 price points in major markets and 4 price points in smaller markets. And so I call them buckets. Like if you were to call them price points, I use the term bucket. So the first bucket, or bucket number 1, is what I call starter or entry level. And again, that's different in every market, right? Alberta might be different than Mississauga, which is different than Chicago, which is different than Boston. So starter price points or entry level. Bucket 2 is average price point. Now, every market's got a different average price point. You can find out that data fairly easy through a real estate board, an MLS, title company. Again, I use average versus median, even though maybe median is a better representation of the market. Most human beings, let alone real estate agents, aren't very good at math. So average is usually more easy available. The third bucket is how I define as a high-end home or a high-end condo. And that would be 2 times whatever the average is for that market. That's bucket 3. Bucket 4, we define as a luxury property. And again, it's not a price point to what you said earlier, Taylor, but sometimes that's the only, sometimes in a market or a training, or you go to a market, it's easily can be defined by a price point, even though it might not be the most accurate. And so we define a luxury home, that's bucket 4, as a home that is 3 times the average price point for that given market. So if you're in Silicon Valley and the average price point is $2.5 million, well, 7.5 million would be luxury for that market. And then bucket 5, which is in the large markets, is 10 times the average price point, and we call that ultra luxury. So I tell agents to diversify, and most agents, their portfolio, just like a financial advisor would say, hey, you won the lottery, Taylor, have some long-term, short-term, high risk, low risk, diversify your portfolio. Well, even in a transitioning market, if the luxury market is terrible, but average and high end is strong, and it's a seller's market, well, if you diversify your portfolio of clients you work with, then even in the peaks and valleys or turbulence in the natural real estate markets, you should be okay. So diversification is key.
I find that so interesting because at the different price points, there seems to be different momentum in markets. Like sometimes when markets lose value, they lose value for average people, but people that had money still have money. I'm going to see a friend of mine from Silicon Valley, actually. I think you probably know him, Andy C. And he does a lot of luxury there. And he talks about this as well, about how sometimes luxury can also be like balancing a broomstick, and it sways one way or the other, and the luxury moves the most. Is that what you find as well?
Yeah, it really depends. It's market specific, right? So I'm based in Chicago, and we have the 10th most amount of millionaires in the world. Chicago does. However, we've lost a ton of wealthy people in the last 5 years because of high taxes, crime. I call it the summer of love, summer of 2020, when people were burning things down. Like people had enough of it. So we have lost a lot. So before 2020, the luxury market was definitely a buyer's market. Homes sat on the market for years sometimes, but definitely months. And unless you priced it really aggressive, you weren't going to get it sold. So again, every market is a little different. And sometimes things change, within the market based on outside forces, election, interest rates, that sort of thing.
So with some of these listings taking so long to sell, I know a lot of agents have concern about carrying costs, and what if I list it for a while and then it doesn't sell, and then they go and list it with someone else. I think that probability is a little bit higher when you get into those price points. How do you mediate that risk?
Yeah, I would agree with you. Maybe you've heard this saying before, you want to be the firstborn, the second wife, and a third real estate agent. And, with luxury real estate, that's the case, right? Because with any real estate, but I can't tell you how many times that I was the second and third agent and I got a home sold because you got to be a really good storyteller to be successful in sales, in real estate. And when I say storyteller, I'm not talking about BSing people, but using good analogies and examples or case studies. And so I try to minimize the days on the market as most I can by managing everybody's expectations. But the other thing is we try to position the home more effectively. So I have these case study books. Most real estate agents don't do a good job of telling the seller that, hey, your pink wallpaper needs to be toned down, or your animal print, or the stuffed polar bear or moose head, or whatever it might be, right? So how do you have that conversation without offending them? Most agents don't do a good job there. So there are some difficult properties. I'm right now, as we speak, there's a big castle in my market, and they've interviewed me a few times, and I have a call here in 2.5 hours with them.
You're talking about Michael Jordan's house.
Well, that one I showed to Michael Jordan. In 2000, I think 17, the NFL Defensive Player of the Year was Khalil Mack of the Raiders. He got traded to the Bears, Chicago Bears, and I showed him Pippen's home and Michael Jordan's home. But Michael Jordan's home has been on the market for 12 years. Same agent.
Wow.
Sellers,
Loyalty.
yeah, exactly.
That's got to be a record.
Seriously, I know. I can't believe, especially, during the pandemic, they released that documentary called The Last Dance, which is ESPN did. It was a great, I just thought.
Well done.
So good. So good.
Yeah. Some billionaire you would buy it just to say, I have Jordan's home.
Now, Kirsten, so I worked, this is early in the days of my company. I worked with a guy who's in Aspen, Colorado, $30 million listing. And the owner basically said, hey, I'll sell this. And then when we sell it, it's going to only be conditional on me finding a house that I want after that. Eventually gets it, took him about 1.5 years to get a deal on $30 million property. And then the owner couldn't find anything, decided to stay in the home. So he went from what was going to potentially be a $750,000 commission to losing $60,000 on the marketing. So I'm curious, when you're playing at that kind of level, what do you do or recommend to kind of mitigate that type of risk?
Yeah. So in that scenario, that agent, realized I'm taking a chance here, right? I call it a buyer contingency. I have a listing right now where the seller will only sell if he finds the perfect property, right? So we're disclosing that to buyers and their agent ahead of time. But I knew going into it a little bit, hey, they're not really a seller, at this point. They're not really committed. So you have to be careful. You want to maybe get some kind of marketing agreement with the seller ahead of time, or reimbursement, and you have to manage their expectations. Like, hey, if you were solely, surely committed to selling Andrew, I have no problem. I will cheerfully invest money, thousands of dollars, in this case, $50,000, $60,000. But, if you decide not to sell, there's a no sale fee, which you're going to reimburse me. And we'll either document monthly where I've spent, or it's just a predetermined amount for my time, energy, effort, proprietary, systems. So I have this castle right now, not Michael Jordan's, but an actual castle where they're interviewing me. And I think 7.9 was my max price point. And they're thinking 12. We're not even on the same planet, right? So I shared with him my fee. He wants me to lower my fee by a third. And I have a call with them in 2.5 hours. And one of the things I'm going to propose is, hey, I'll lower my fee, but I'm going to charge you a marketing retainer up front. So now I'm playing with house money so I'll cheerfully do videos and all this other stuff. And because he's on the hook to pay him, but I'll save him if it does sell for 12 million, I'll save him $60,000 to $100,000 in commissions potentially, but he's on the hook because now he's got to put his money where his mouth is. If he thinks it's worth 12 million, well, great, let's market it. I'll do some amazing print and digital and video, and then if it sells, great, I'll either reimburse you towards my fee or not. So you have to be creative. Getting back to your original question, both Taylor and Andrew as well.
Yeah, I totally see that. And it seems to be that with those larger deals, that's why you see more experienced agents and more dynamic thinkers there, is because from sliding scales, like if the property sells for more, you pay more. If the property sells for less, you pay less. There seems to be a lot more dynamic elements. I think that knowing that's probably going to give you a huge advantage given the changes in the regulations in the states.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to give us some advantages over those that can't articulate their value for sure. And yeah, sliding scale. The other thing, I sold the house for the former CEO of Office Max, and he proposed a performance bonus to me. In other words, if you get it sold by a certain date, I'll pay you above and beyond, even more than what I was proposing. And most recently, I just got paid a half a percentage point more for it's actually closing tomorrow. These sellers, excuse me, beat me up on fee, and I don't like adjusting my fees. I don't, but I'm also a business person, and so in this case, they gave me more than I was even asking. So if they're depending on what they do for a living, if they're a CEO, many times they get bonuses if certain numbers come in, or their earnings, et cetera. So there many high net worth individuals, aren't going to push back on fees as much as you think if you bring value to the table. You know, I think we're going to talk about it here, but there's some things that were really outlined in our book. We just written a lot of books. I'm the founder of the Lux designation, but we most recently wrote a book called Secrets of Top Luxury Agents. It came out in May, and I can give everybody listening a free digital copy of the book at the
Wow.
end if you're okay with it. But the premise of the book is really, so I've over the last 10 years put together 16 common questions I get repeatedly when I speak on big stages about breaking into luxury or dominating luxury. And so I've put this list of 16 together, and our book has 26 co-authors in it. Basically, 26 people are featured in Secrets of Top Luxury Agents. And so we gave them these 16 questions and said, hey, Taylor, pick 6 that you're most comfortable answering. So there's 9 questions in each chapter that the co-authors answer. 6 are the ones I gave them 16 and said, hey, pick 6 that you're most comfortable and that you feel like you're subject matter expert on. And the other 3 were required, and I gave them. The first was, tell us about your first luxury sale transaction. Did you represent the buyer or the seller, and how did they find out about you, and vice versa? So we have 26 rock star agents sharing their first luxury sale and how they found it. One lady talked about she was working in open house and met a builder and developer, and we have a lot of great stories there that the listenership could get some good ideas. And then the other 2 questions that I required they're at the end of each chapter. They're the bonus section, and those are consumer benefits. So Taylor, if you're a homeowner, here are the things that you should look for in a top agent before hiring them. And so we have 212 tips for homeowners and 118 tips for buyers before a buyer signs a buyer agency agreement. Because I believe if we look out for the consumer first and you do a great job as an advisor, naturally you're going to get referrals. So, in 2000, Robert De Niro was in this movie called Meet the Parents, right, with Ben Stiller, and he
That's a good
talked
movie.
about, it's classic, right? He talked about how to penetrate the circle of trust. So that is very difficult to penetrate high net worth, successful people in your local marketplace because they're skeptical, they've been taken advantage of. So many times, so that's why we came up with these ideas in the book, because we wanted fellow agents to realize, okay, how can I be out my true authentic self, not be fake, but on the same token, break into and work with the high net worth buyers and sellers.
Totally. And like when you take a look at all your co-authors on that book, like there's some great names. And we've got some mutual friends, including Gary and Tristan. So really, that's a wealth of knowledge even between the two of those people. And I can't
Yeah.
imagine how many people you've met, because moving through real estate as a speaker is very different than a lot of people that go to the occasional conference, you know? Like the number of people that reach out to you or that you run into just kind of resources. Like I remember when I'm running into something here, I often call Elizabeth McQueen out from Vancouver. She knows what's up. If I've got something to solve, or maybe Glenda from Atlanta, Glenda
Yeah.
Baker.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, she's a blast. But that's another neat thing about writing books like this and having projects like this is it really creates those relationships with the other people that are deep in the craft.
Yeah, it absolutely does. It creates relationships. I'm at the Florida Association of Realtors annual conference as we speak. So I'm down here in Orlando, and even just going through the trade show, right? The expo, if you call it, and I'm getting demos. People are pitching me, but I'm looking for the principle of slight edge as an agent, as a marketer. So when I go back, I can do something that my competition has no idea, whether it be technology, whether it be a prospecting tool. I say that there's two forms of prospecting. There's warm and there's cold. Warm marketing and cold marketing. Cold marketing is have not mets, people that don't know you, like you, and trust you yet, also known as prospecting, right? And then warm marketing is your database, your sphere, your have mets, people that do know you, they do like you and trust you. And so I'm a big believer. You got to do both. But I go to these expos and I'm looking for whether it be technology, whether it be prospecting, some service related. Uh, it's important because our business is really broken down into three sections, if you will. Any business, it's your before unit, your during, and your after. Before, during, and after. Before is, of course, before a transaction starts, before you start working with the buyer, before you take on the listing. Prospecting is before. Your during is actively working with somebody. And then your after, of course, is after the transaction is completed. And so most agents do a terrible job in the after, right? So I'm based here in the States. NAR, National Association of Realtors, puts out these surveys. About 80% of the consumers said they'd use their agent again, but yet only about 20% do. Why? Because that agent doesn't stay in communication with them. They don't talk to them. They don't nurture after the fact. So those are some of the things that we teach agents are the before, the during, and the after, and best practices specifically in the luxury space.
When you talk about slight edge, can you reflect on things that you found in the back that like the found in the past that you've got wins with? Like what were one of these golden nuggets that have worked for you in the past?
Yeah, so I say, don't think like a real estate agent, think like a marketer, right? So I'd go to non-real estate agents. I'm a big Dan Kennedy guy. So Dan S. Kennedy, direct response marketing. And so I remember going to a conference with other entrepreneurs and somebody there was selling and showing they were a vendor, these video books, these video brochures where you open them up and there's a 3-inch, 5-inch, 7-inch
I've seen
monitor.
those.
Yeah, so I've been including those for people that take our designation for the last 7 or 8 years. But I immediately invested in some. I uploaded my videos. I'd go on listing appointments, and when everybody else brought their laptops or their iPads, I'd show up differently. I brought this branded. They'd be looking at it. When I went to networking, when I went to Chamber of Commerce, I'd bring it because it's a conversational starter. Hey, what do you do for a living? Well, let me show you, right? So that's the principle of slight edge. Sometimes the principle of slight edge is being able to articulate your value proposition better than the competition. So right now I'm like scheming with down here as well, one of the founders of a major company called LPT Realty, and with this BBA, the buyer broker agreement going on in the States right now, being able to articulate and value and overcoming objections, as well as how do you make the ease of the, hey, you have to have a signed agreement before I can show you that home. And so again, that's principle of slight edge, having the technology, being able to articulate better, more effectively than the competition. I say, Vince Lombardi used to say, confidence is contagious, so is lack thereof. So you give me a confident agent, they'll figure out a way. And so when people were going nuts for the last 6 months in the United States, I didn't, doing August 17th, which was the date it went into effect, I didn't stress out about it. I'm like, I'm going to let all those subject matter experts figure out what's working, what's not, and debunk myths. And then around August 5th to the 10th, I'll start diving in, and I'm a quick learner. And that's really what I've done. but that's another topic.
That's great. Just like know where you fit in the chain. On some things, I'm going to be an early adopter. On something like this, if I got like guys like Tristan Automato around, let him crack it. He's going to
Yeah.
crack it with a whole team of people behind him.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's people always ask me the question, like, how are you an early adopter with like a lot of things on like the tech and market side? And I was like, I often say I'm actually not. I let other people do that initial testing. Just as soon as I see something that's starting to get traction, then I go all in on it.
Yeah.
But I wait for those signals from other people a lot of the time that, okay, this is getting traction. Then I go all in on it.
Andrew, you really measure well. You know, when I talk to you about the things that you're doing, you always have these measurables. You're like, this does way better than that, and these 3 other things we tried. Now, when you take a look as a marketer on the luxury side, how do you see that differently as somebody who is just working on it from that perspective?
Same
I'd like
thing.
to hear. I was just gonna say, I'd
go
like to hear Michael's thought from the direct response side, because we have typically found direct response has not done as well with the luxury stuff that we've done. Like especially market, like with a lot of the clients we market luxury side, we take out the direct response side and just kind of go more freely open everything, and then let them reach out when they're ready. Because we find that like 90, like the amount of like the increase in just like terrible leads goes up exponentially when you start marketing luxury. Some people are like, I just wanted the pretty picture. I was so curious, but they have no intention of ever doing
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, no, that is true. I mean, it's the upper price points. It's a lot more fun, but let's face it, a lot more tire kickers, looky-loos, unqualified buyers for sure. And we run that risk when we host open houses. I mean, Saturday in 2 days, I'll be hosting an open house in my town of Wheaton, Illinois. It's 2.9 million, and I know that 95% of people that come in there can't afford it. But I build relationships, build rapport. And maybe they can afford 800,000. Well, I'll refer that to a team member, right? But yeah, trust, Andrew, trust is the number one component.
Yeah.
High net worth individuals, anybody. But I have Glenn Stearns from Undercover Billionaire. He wrote the forward in our book. He started Stearns Lending and Mortgage, and Glenn is a brilliant. He's such a great, humble man. But I asked him point blank, you own properties across the world. What do you look for in an agent? I mean, that was kind of my take on having him write the forward, right, from a billionaire. So what do you think? And the number one thing is, can I trust you, right? And then number two, we want to know about your network and if you're representing him on the sale of a home, the marketing. What are you going to do to position the home? So I'm a big believer, best marketer beats best agent. So if you're an amazing marketer and a great agent, you're going to be, a rock star. So, but if you had to pick one or the other, I'd say be a better marketer than, oh, you're a great agent, but nobody knows about you. You can't be a silent agent. One of the things I say all the time is shy real estate agents have skinny kids. You can't be shy in this industry. You got to let people know what to do. Pass out your card and talk to people and don't be shy.
So when you were breaking into luxury, did you have to change the people around you? A lot of people think they can't do luxury because they're not in the network.
Well, yes and no. So I'm still who I am, right? So my buddies are that I drink beers with. I got a big birthday party coming up this weekend, and most of my close inner circle aren't those luxury high net worth. However, I did go to where the money was more, right? So I went to chamber events. I started networking groups in some of these areas. I did some non-profit type of events. So you definitely want to change your environments because, Zig Ziglar said, if you hang out with 9 dead broke people, you're bound to be the 10th, right? So, if you want to be successful, you got to be around other successful people. And Andrew talked about it a little bit, letting others figure it out first. But, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, right? So you want to be around others that are successful, whether it be directly, indirectly, business owners. And I'm like a sponge. I'm always intrigued how they become a business owner, or how they become successful. And, so again, your social life might change a little bit, but don't change who you are just because you have money now, or maybe you did, you hang out with people that do. But you do want to change a little bit where you network business wise, et cetera.
So when you take a look at some of these things that were razors in the past, that there were these like slight edges, is there anything that you're kind of waiting to get it sorted out? Like a lot of people are looking more towards maybe augmented reality. Is that starting to become a thing? But there might be something closer in than that. Is there a twist you see coming?
It's a great question. I mean, I think it's trust. I think it's trust, right? Yeah, at the end of the day, it's going to be relationship and trust. But I think you got to have an amazing online presence, right? People are going to Google you, they're going to look you up. And when I showed Michael Jordan's home, you referenced it earlier, I got a call from Khalil Mack's manager, and he was Googling luxury agents and saw my YouTube videos and my lifestyle videos. And so people are going to Google you, they're going to look you up, and you got to build your online reputation, your online presence. I call it repetitive engagement. And if somebody buys or sells a home and they don't use you, you got to look in the mirror. I'm looking at a mirror right now. You got to look in the mirror, because at the end of the day, that's you. Now, there are some things you could do everything right. You could stay in communication, but they buy with somebody else. But you can minimize that. So I don't think there's some magic easy button or something. AI is big, right? AI and predictive analytics is really big. So being comfortable much more than Chat GPT, right? Uh, you want to look the part, you want to feel good. I will say, if I look back on how I dress today versus how I dressed 15 years ago, I look at pictures and sometimes I'm embarrassed by what I was wearing. So I wear a sport coat and just a black t-shirt underneath, and some nice Cole Haan shoes, and I'm not a suit and tie guy, but I look presentable and business casual. When I'm out in public, people are judging me. So I do, because I am that luxury guy, I do dress up maybe more than I did when I wasn't luxury.
I'm curious, so because you mentioned you worked with Khalil Mack, for example, because I've had clients who've worked with celebrities, and we were talking about one who actually lost the connection to a major sports team because they talked on social about working with them. And so, because they all wanted that privacy. So, how do you kind of handle that aspect of it when you're working with those high profile people?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've coached a bunch of agents as well that have worked with a lot of celebrities, WWF wrestlers, and NFL, NBA. You really got to know their personality. Sometimes we can overanalyze things, but I call it left brain, right brain. The left brain, linear spreadsheet people, they're going to be more private than the right brain. Drives that flamboyant car, has film crew following them around, but. You might just ask, right? At the end of the day, it's simple. I would assume confidentiality unless I get the green light. So, hey, Andrew, one of the things that helps me out in this business, right, is word of mouth and referrals. And since I'm helping you through this transaction, you're going to hear other people buying or selling. Keep me in mind. And if you're okay with that, I'd love to be able to maybe either share that picture we took together, or take a picture with you and just talking about, how we were able to help you in this transaction. But, would you be okay if I posted that or I shared that? And, just ask if you got a good relationship with them. Now, many times you're dealing with the manager, you're dealing with the management team, and the athlete might not even see the house. It might be the wife or a cousin or a manager. So, with Khalil, yeah, I met him a few times, but I was dealing with management a whole lot more than dealing with him. So they are very closely guarded of their clients for good reason, for safety, security. You have a lot of weirdos out there today. And if you say, I sold, Khalil the home at 123 Main Street, people will be driving by, and because many of these high net worth individuals, they buy the homes in land trust, right? They want to be invisible. They don't want a digital footprint. And if you're tipping some things away, or by who you bought, or where people can see the house or whatever, you're going to lose that client.
I I imagine that's something that's intimidating on the way in, but you probably feel very comfortable with that now, seeing who wants to be where as far as their exposure?
Yeah, so Taylor, the other aspect is sometimes we can overcomplicate things, right? And so you think, oh, this is a celebrity, this is a musician, like, and you listen, at the end of the day, this is a true story. I have a client that's got a $10 million property in Brentwood, Tennessee. He's touring it to me last month when I was in Nashville. And he's his dog took a big dump right on the area rug, and he had to clean it up just like you and I do, right? So at the end of the day, those high net worth individuals, they put their pant leg on one leg at a time, and they got to clean up their dog's poop. So sometimes we can overcomplicate things, and we're our worst enemy. So that's one of the things I really work on through our courses, through our materials, is breaking down those foundational mindset hurdles that agents have, limiting beliefs, I call them.
Well, you can see a lot of evidence of growth. Like you were looking back on pictures of yourself previously and say, okay, obviously my image has changed over time. I paid more attention to this. I started spending more time with higher net worth individuals. And some of it is kind of like fitting in zebra camouflage style. But were there any points, like I always see change as evidence of a struggle? Were there some things earlier on that you were like, man, did I ever stumble here? This was a mistake, or I lost this client?
Sure, yeah, there's always things, you look back, you can always learn, right? I'm a former college football player, right? And so you play a good game, big victory on Saturday, Sunday, man, are you humbled because you're in the film room and coaches is, pointing out all your flaws, right? So I'm always looking to better. Yeah, there's time. I lost a $10 million listing one point. It was on election day, November 6th of 2020, because I was 5 minutes late to the meeting. I lost track of time. And they ended up later hiring me, but still, it was something like, the gut feel like, so, get there early, be prepared, do your notes ahead of time. And, nobody cares how much you know until they know you care. So be authentic and get to know people. So there were at times where I went on listing appointments where I know I was a better marketer and I didn't get the listing. Well, I missed that important step of building relationship, building rapport, asking twice the amount of questions as speaking, right? Like ask good questions, and people love to talk. They love to show and talk about their house if you're working with a potential seller.
I want to unpack that a couple steps back. You were talking about doing your notes before you come in. I imagine that almost all the players at this level are very concerned about the amount of time that they're spending on anything. So when you sit down, being prepared is probably very key. How long is a market evaluation for a luxury property?
Well, two things. First off, I just heard this yesterday, and I've been doing this a long time, and I thought this is brilliant. I need to do this. And then I'll answer your question. So Andrew was like, if I'm sitting across from the table from Andrew, and he's a high net worth seller, it could be any price point, really. But so Andrew, I want to share with you a little bit about our marketing plan. I could get through it really fast, about 7 minutes, or I could take about 70 minutes. You tell me the pace, the speed that you. How much time do I have, or what would you like me to get through this, and how long? Like giving it, because the left brain might say, "Well, take 70 minutes." That right brain, high level, that D, the driver, might say, "Give me your 7 minute, man. I'll know right away." So I wanted to cover that because I just heard someone articulate it yesterday. But getting back to your original question. One more time, if you wouldn't mind giving it to me.
My question was, as you were saying, being prepared at the moment, and that was a great answer, by the way, because you were saying, well, I'm going to find out who I'm talking to, and if they want to go 70 minutes, I'm going to have to go deep, and if they want it in 7, I have to be a sniper. I have to know exactly what we're talking about, exactly what matters to them, and I've got to be concise, use an economy of words to communicate that. So when you're going into those, what is the normal? Are you normally in and out of there do you think it's shorter or longer than people expect?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm about an hour to an hour and a half, but your question was about pricing it as well. How long does it take to put together a market analysis? So if Taylor, you were the homeowner, I like to go first. So I might say, Taylor, if you don't mind me asking, are you interviewing other agents?
Yeah, I've got 3.
You got 3, perfect. Can I just ask one favor? I'd like to go first, if that's okay.
Oh, I'm surprised. Yes, of course you can.
Yeah, I'd like to go first. Um, and then, so I like going first. And then when I actually am in the meeting, I'll try to figure out who else you're talking to. I start with brokerage because it lets their guard down. Oh, I'm talking to Compass. I'm talking to Keller Williams, talking to Remix. Because then I know each of my competition's unique value proposition from a company level as well as agent level. But I get their guard down by saying, yeah, Remax. Do you mind sharing, who at Remax? Then I might ask them who at Remax. But the thing I would say is that at that appointment, Taylor, after I get to tour the home and we build rapport and I do a little with them, like, hey, Taylor, your home is absolutely gorgeous. I can appreciate all the millwork. Everything's customized. I did not come prepared with a go-to-market price day. Matter of fact, those 2 other agents you're interviewing, if they come, if if Patty comes in with her high heels and Paul comes in with his, binder with a suggested price, I'd walk them to the door. I mean, how can they come up with a price when you're showing me all the special features for the first time? I mean, just the millwork alone, and right, compliment them. And so guess what happens then? When Patty comes in with her high heels and Paul comes in with his 3-ring binder for the CMA, they're like, yeah, Mike was right. Well, how can they give me a price? So I'm setting them up for failure before they even step in the door. So then, but marketing a home and determining a price is very important, and it's a science. So I work with a lot of appraisers in my market, and if there's no comps in many of these custom homes, there's not a true comp. How do you determine price? Well, there's 3 ways. One is you determine what's the land worth. In other words, this 15-acre, this 1-acre parcel, what is that worth? And then what's a similar 9,000 square foot home, similar age? What's sold in the area? And then we do the plus and minuses of the land differentiator. And that's kind of a blended approach. And then you have the comp approach, right? If there's a true comp.
Which almost never would be the case for you.
That's true. Correct.
Yeah. Everything that you're selling will start as a blank page. Often they're working with architects. There's just so much there, right? And when we think about how the interiors change in average sized houses, the expression is so much bigger when people have fuel behind it with money. Is that a hard part? Like, one of the things that we mentioned was Michael Jordan's house, it's so incredibly personalized. How could someone else, unless they were a fan, like you mentioned, possibly embrace that? But do you run into that very often, where someone has individualized their house so specifically that it has to be renovated to sell?
Absolutely. I run into it at every price point, right? And so if I were to role play with you, Taylor, I would say, Taylor, the way you live in your home and the way I live in my home, that's to our personal style, or we call that decorating. But when we go to sell, we have 2 options. One is we can have a narrow pool of buyers because we'll keep your home the way it is. And so we'll market your home to a smaller pool of buyers that love your decorating, or we open it up to a much larger pool of buyers and we tone some things down based on market research, more timeless. So Taylor, based on your situation and you knowing the market, would you rather I market your home to a smaller pool of buyers or larger?
Oh, definitely a larger group. Like, a small group is going to be so long.
Exactly. So 99% of the time, they're going to say a larger pool of buyers. Great. So now you've given me permission to take the next step. And the next step is to have a lookbook, basically a case study book of similar situations where somebody had a very decorative house or a very taste specific home. And you, with your stager and your professionalism, toned it down and opened it up to a larger pool of buyers. In a perfect world, Taylor, this one was on the market with 2 other agents. We sold it in 28 days. This one here was on with another agent. And then they kind of like Jenny Craig, right? Jenny Craig, before Jenny Craig, after Jenny Craig. Okay. Before they hired Michael LaFido, after they hired Michael LaFido. Any questions? And so if you have lookbooks and case studies, I have different theme books. I have different theme books based on architecture and style and And so, yes,
My name is Taylor Hack. I am the Ozempic of real estate. I love it. That's great. The before and after, and instead of telling people, showing people.
yes, you're
These
in
are
a
fundamental skills at a master's level.
visual. People are visual. The power of demonstrations. One of my business coaches once said, if you can demonstrate what makes you different and unique visually or through experience, you're going to be way better off than just telling people.
And
I
how,
couldn't
when you
agree more.
sell a listing, obviously you want to promote for other people. Like, do you do like the traditional circle prospecting you hear about, or how are you adapting that for a luxury market where like maybe there's gates in front of all the houses and different things like that? Like, what do you do differently once you sell a place to promote it to the area?
Yeah, so you're talking about in some areas are very exclusive. I don't do door knocking, but you got mailing, right? In some countries, I'm, Cabo, Mexico, getting a mailing list is very difficult. Some areas you can do that. I know Canada's might be different than the US with title companies and data, but in this case, you got social media, right? So if you can do video at the house, before the house, during the house, pre-listing, post listing. So video is something that's huge. Digital marketing, branding, uh, physical, right? Just listed, just sold postcards. People are always curious what your neighbor's home just sold for. So I do a lot of circle prospecting around um, my listings, neighbors of my listings, other agents' listings. 123 Elm Street it's not even listed with me, but hey, your neighbor at 123 Elm Street just put their home on the market. There's subtle differences between their home and yours. If you'd like to know what your home is worth today in August of 2024, reach out to me. So you still can do that. You're just not going to be able to door knock and maybe open house the same way.
Yeah, I remember meeting Rory from Hollywood, and it was the first time I had talked to somebody who was in a market that was so much further up than mine. And he was mentioning going to the neighbors and delivering cookies that were apologetic because they were going to increase the traffic in such a private and exclusive neighborhood. And I thought that was such a nice touch.
That's a great way. So I do a lot of open houses too, and so I'll have team members or myself. We will door knock the neighbors to give them a heads up. Hey, just give me a heads up on Saturday between 12 and 2. You might see a lot of traffic. We're actually hosting a open house at your neighbors. Here's my card. Here's a flyer, because you might know somebody that is looking to get into this neighborhood, this school district, fill in the blank. The other reason is I'm giving you my card is there's going to be disappointed buyers for whatever reason that home wasn't the right fit. And I'd love to show them other homes in this neighborhood. So if you know of a neighbor that's thinking about selling, or you're curious to see what your home is worth, or maybe you'd consider sell, keep me in mind, because Saturday I'll probably have 8 to 10 disappointed buyers that are pre-approved, ready to buy. And we're going to be looking for homes. And right now there's not much on the market.
And that
I
would work really across any price point, but that wouldn't even be a luxury
Correct.
specific script that would work.
Yeah, that is correct, Andrew.
Is there
How many of
anything
the
that you
tactics
see?
you do
Oh,
are like something, sorry, just from a looking at a perspective of like luxury versus like the tactics you do that work across everyone? You mentioned obviously like they're just people too. Like, are there any things you specifically have to change when it comes to working luxury compared to how you might do like a middle of the market average home when you're working with that clientele?
I mean, I think video is the new gold standard when it comes to that price point, more so than entry level properties. So I think video is key. I like video over Matterports. There's some things that you can't do in that price point that you can do in other price points. I have clients that don't want a floor plan out there for security reasons, or a Matterport for security reasons, where other price points, they're like, it's no big deal, right? So I think there's definitely some expectation. The high net worth individual, they do like print more than probably other price points. So having, nice flyers, nice marketing materials, that's something that I would say is maybe more expected, because when they travel, when they're sitting in airport lounges, they're looking at high classy marketing pieces. So that might be something that they would maybe expect.
So how, when you go, like, are you creating like, because I know, for example, I was talking to an agent, what they did is they would go like with their brand and create a magazine of other luxury properties and then they would just stick theirs on the front. Like, do you get into doing anything like that?
We do some pre-marketing where we'll take their home and run it through some analytics to let them know how many buyers or agents that I'm working with potentially could be good fits beforehand, so pre-sell them. We also do, I don't work the cancel and expired marketing as much as I used to. But we would do some really crazy marketing where we'd have collateral printed with their home on there ahead of time. So subconsciously they're thinking, man, this guy did all this and I'm not even his agent. Just wait till he hires me. So, that's definitely something you could do as well. Jennifer asked a question, and there might be other questions. I just happened to see it. Jennifer, I'm the founder of the Lux designation. It's like the alternative to the CLHMS course. It's totally different. I've never taken that course because I didn't want them to think I tried to mimic them. But we've had a lot of agents take both. Keller Williams ended up offering to buy our course, even though they used to require that other course. We feel like ours is more cutting edge. It's more 2024ish. It was founded by me, and I'm still in the trenches. So we tweaked and we modified it. We added AI and blockchain and real life stuff versus a course that was bought and sold, and now it's the owner isn't the owner anymore. So it's a great course. I tell agents to get both. Of course, I'm biased. If you only had $597 US dollars to pick one or the other, I think you're going to get a lot more value for the before unit for prospecting, the during, the customer support, and the after, so you can get repeatable business.
That's a great breakdown of that. How did it come that was it just through public speaking and so on that you saw like, oh, okay, what people are really looking for me from you is to offer them guidance. Is that what kind of spurred going to a designation?
So I was a former high school health and PE teacher. I got a 19 on my ACT, which isn't good, Taylor. And so I as a part-time agent, I was very successful. And so I had others saying, you got to teach us. I was the second leading producer for the entire Midwest for realty executives. They're maybe the top 15, 20 brokerage in the US at the time, maybe top 10. And so a lot of times people were like, how are you doing this? We know you're a full-time teacher and you're crushing it. So my first speaking gig was to a women's council of realtors. Eventually, I created a product called the Ultimate Listing Blueprint. More leads, more listings, more closings. It was a $497 box of DVDs and CDs. In that course, I had a module. How do I get 8% listings in a 5% market? I think that's what it was. I couldn't say that today anymore, but that's basically and unbeknownst to me, there was a gentleman with ERA Franchise Systems who bought my course, loved it, recommended me to one of his top franchisors in Hinsdale, Illinois. So I got recruited and I was the manager. I wasn't the manager. I led trainings for this office for a few years. And I just went all in and luxury at the time because Hinsdale, Illinois was a luxury market. So the switch flipped and it gave me permission that, hey, I can do this. So as I was teaching all these agents on best marketing practices, Taylor, I soon realized these are top luxury agents crushing it, doing a lot more volume than me. And they don't know anything, not just about direct response, but print, digital, outside the box. And so I started doing some research and I realized there's a huge void in the luxury training, speaking business. So I kind of pivoted, but just like you mentioned earlier, a lot of the stuff I teach applies to all price points, but we made the switch. And then shortly after that, we created our designation in 2016 called Lux or Luxury Specialist. Then our first book come out called Luxury Listing Specialist. And then our most recent book just came out this year.
What an incredible way to use an education degree.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I've always liked inspiring and getting the most out of my athletes or my students. And now, I've literally brought, some agents to tears based on us changing their life. I had one agent in Texas. She's actually in my book, Lucinda Gadsden. She had COVID one year and only worked 6 months. She made the most money she ever did, only working 6 months out of the year. She increased her average sale price, I think she told me, by 60% because of the principles that I taught her.
That's interesting. Does that translate as well? Like, I'm wondering. I'm a father of a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old girls, right? You've got kids too, eh?
Yeah, yeah, 15, 14, and 12.
What do your kids think about what you do?
They love the vacations. They love, they love doing some of that stuff. I've incorporated my kids in videos, some of the lifestyle videos. They've gone on buyer appointments with me. Um, they've like I have a $3.5 million home with an amazing backyard oasis, and my son brought two of his buddies about a month ago, and they were hitting a golf simulator. So I try to incorporate uh, them in. And I was a former teacher, and I'm trying to teach them. You can work for somebody when you're older, or you can create your own schedule and be an entrepreneur, right? So uh, I'm trying to expose them to earned, not given, right? Like in today's world with socialism and handouts and everything else, a lot of people want given and not earned. I'm trying to teach my kids earned, not given.
That's a good way to do it. I couldn't agree more. I think that when I look at my daughters, I want to create capable young ladies that can not necessarily rely on the people around them, but learn how to, especially that magic, that ability to create value from nothing and to
Yeah.
see where like the gaps are in value. If I can pass that along, I think that that is entrepreneurial spirit.
Absolutely.
Well, we
All
really
right.
appreciate you coming and chatting with us on this.
Yep.
As like you go into the next phase of your career, so you launch this book, you're doing your luxury designation, or sorry, you're offering your luxury designation, and you're obviously incredibly successful at luxury real estate in Chicago. Is there anything that is still on your list as these big goals to hit?
Absolutely, yes. We're doing some exciting things, and we're going to be announcing some exciting things, but group coaching is one of the things that we haven't. I've done group coaching, I've done one-on-one coaching, but never formal. It's just been all organic people reaching out. We're going to start being much more formal, including one of our programs. It's called our closer program, Taylor, where if an agent has a huge luxury listing opportunity, they hire us, we're part of the team, we help close the deal and get them the listing, and then we stick around and help them market it. And then we get paid closing. So we're going to be more, you're going to see more and more of that. And we'll have other books and other fun things coming out. And I got a full-time social media, digital marketing guy on our team now. So people that don't know Michael LaFido, they're going to see more and more of us. This book has been really well received. So we're going to probably do some book tours and, secrets of top luxury agents. We're exposing secrets so that others, one of my goals is to increase diversity in luxury real estate as well. So I'm a member of NAREB, which is for Black realtors, NAREB, Hispanic, ARIA, Asian, and the LGBTQ Alliance. So I want to increase diversity in luxury real estate as well. A lot of old white people in it, and I want to try to get some younger, fresh faces.
And you have Richard Silver in the book, who's one of my favorite people in Canada from the industry. He knows what he's talking about. Nicest human out there.
Yeah, Richard's amazing. So I alluded earlier, I'm going to provide a way for somebody to get our book for free. If you're in the United States, you can get the book, just pay the shipping and handling. If you're outside the US, you can get the ebook, right? The digital version of our book for free. I made it really simple. You can buy the book on Amazon. You can go to Barnes and Noble. It's Kindle, softcover, hardcover, and Audible coming out in September. Or you could just go to freeluxurybook.com. I try to make it real simple. Freeluxurybook.com. And if you leave your information, you'll be emailed the book, freeluxurybook.com. Thanks, Andrew.
Perfect. Put that in the chat, and then we'll send a follow-up email for everyone to grab that as well. Appreciate your time. If people want to reach out to you, what's the best way?
Best way to reach out to me, find me on the web. You can go to our website, luxurylistingspecialist.com, shoot me an email, michael@marketingluxurygroup.com, michael@marketingluxurygroup.com. And I'll get you my digital business card too. It's a link, and you guys can connect with me that way.
Appreciate it. And then Taylor, you're not here next week. You
I'm not.
are.
You're going to replace me with someone who has hair.
Yeah, and much better looking. And way smarter.
The legendary Amy Youngren. I actually haven't seen Amy since I was where Michael is today. I think the last time that we were together was with the guys from Curator, like Jimmy Mackin and Chris Smith. Hanging out in Florida was the last time I got to spend time with Amy. Amy runs North Group out of Toronto.
Oh, I know Amy Youngren. She's a sweetheart. She's doing some amazing things. I've known her for years.
Yeah, so she's going to come on and replace Taylor as the co-host next week. And we're going to talk about whatever we want to talk about because we haven't set an agenda yet between us.
And I'm actually going to Texas to spend some time with Andy and a few of my other friends out there at Summit.
Oh, Tom Ferry Summit?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Sounds good. I appreciate your time, Michael. It's been great. That was a great episode. So we're going to upload the recording to YouTube. You'll start seeing it more and more. And anything you want to add, Taylor, before we head out?
Nope, that's it.
Nice and easy. Appreciate your guys' time.
Thanks,
and
guys.
Good to see you too, Andrew. Nice to chat, Michael.
I appreciate Prove Others Wrong. Thanks, guys.
See ya.